Miguel was only 12 years old, a small boy with a shy smile and a voice that could stop strangers in their tracks. Every morning, before the heat rose over the streets of Cebu, he would grab his old guitar, the one with a cracked wooden body and a string tied together with fishing wire, and stand on the same street corner beside his mother's flower stall. The air smelled of dust, gasoline, and sampaguita blossoms. Miguel sang not for fame but for survival. Each note carried their daily hope. A few coins tossed into his open guitar case meant they could eat that night. Still, when he sang, there was no sadness in his tone. He closed his eyes, strummed gently, and poured his soul into the music. The song that always drew a crowd was Hotel California. He didn't fully understand its lyrics, but he knew how it made people stop and listen. Tourists sometimes filmed him, smiling and clapping when he hit that haunting chorus. His mother would stand nearby, watching with pride, whispering prayers under her breath that someone important might notice him one day. That wish came true on an ordinary afternoon. A woman visiting from Los Angeles had stopped by, enchanted by the boy's voice. She recorded his full performance and uploaded it online, captioning it, "This boy from the streets sings like an angel." Overnight, the video spread like wildfire. Millions watched, and comments flooded in, people from all over the world writing that his voice gave them chills, that he deserved a chance. Miguel didn't even know what viral meant until his mother showed him her old phone buzzing nonstop with messages. Then, one morning, a call came that would change everything. A producer from America's Got Talent was on the line. Miguel thought it was a prank, but when they sent the official email, reality hit. They wanted him to audition in Los Angeles. His mother cried for hours, unable to believe her son, the boy who sang on sidewalks, was being flown to America. The weeks before the trip felt like a dream. Neighbors helped them pack, and local musicians donated money to buy Miguel a small suitcase and a new shirt. On the day of the flight, Miguel clutched his guitar as if it were part of him. It was his treasure, his only connection to the songs that kept him strong. He'd never been on a plane before. When the engines roared, he grabbed his mother's hand tightly. Through the window, he saw Cebu shrinking below the clouds, and a tear slipped down his cheek. It wasn't fear, it was the realization that life was changing faster than he could believe. Landing in Los Angeles felt like stepping into another world. Everything looked enormous, the buildings, the roads, even the people. Miguel's mother guided him through the crowds, repeating, "Stay close," as they walked into the hotel arranged by the show. The night before his audition, Miguel couldn't sleep. He kept practicing, Hotel California, over and over, his voice trembling with excitement and nerves. He thought about his father, who had passed away when he was 6, and whispered, "I hope you're watching me, Papa." When the big day arrived, Miguel walked backstage at America's Got Talent, his small frame surrounded by bright lights, cameras, and confident contestants. They wore stylish outfits and spoke fluent English. Miguel stood quietly, his guitar hanging from that same old strap. The stage manager called his name, and his heart began to race. His mother kissed his forehead, whispering in Filipino, "Anak, sing from your heart. That's where God lives." Miguel stepped onto the stage, blinded by the lights, facing thousands of people and the 4 famous judges. Simon Cowell raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised to see a small boy from the Philippines holding such an old guitar. "What are you going to sing?" Simon asked. Miguel took a deep breath and said softly, "Hotel California." The crowd chuckled, intrigued. Then he strummed the first chord. His voice floated through the room, warm and pure, filled with something no microphone could fake, truth. Within seconds, the audience fell silent. Simon leaned forward. Miguel's fingers trembled slightly, but his voice only grew stronger. When the last note faded, there was a long pause before the entire hall erupted in applause. Tears welled in his eyes. He had done it. The street boy from Cebu had just stunned America. The moment the first golden confetti piece touched his skin, Miguel froze. He didn't understand what was happening until the crowd began chanting his name and Simon Cowell stood from his chair with a rare smile. The golden buzzer had been pressed. His mother ran on stage, wrapping her arms around him as tears streamed down both their faces. The host shouted his name over the cheers, the lights flashing like stars. Miguel had only ever seen such moments on TV, never imagining he'd be the one standing in that rain of gold. Simon walked up, shaking his hand, saying softly, "That was one of the most beautiful renditions I've ever heard. You made this song your own." Miguel tried to respond but his voice cracked. All he could whisper was, "Thank you, sir." Backstage, reporters crowded around him, asking how he felt. He just smiled shyly and said, "I sang for my mom." The clip of his golden buzzer performance spread faster than his first viral video. Within hours, millions of new fans around the world shared his name. In Cebu, his neighbors gathered around TVs, crying with joy, proud that their boy had made it this far. As days passed, the world began to know Miguel not just as the street kid singer, but as a real contender in the competition. His face appeared on posters, and TV interviews highlighted his journey. He was amazed by the attention but remained humble, often spending his free time playing his guitar in quiet corners of the studio. Other contestants admired his heart, and even the crew called him the Sunshine Boy because of his kindness. Yet, when rehearsals for Hollywood Week began, Miguel started to feel the pressure. The other singers were older, professionally trained, and confident. During practice, his guitar string suddenly snapped, sending panic through him. It felt like a sign that maybe he didn't belong there. But before the tears could fall, a sound technician approached with a new string and fixed the guitar himself. "You got this, kid," he said with a smile. Those few words gave Miguel the strength he needed to keep going. That night, sitting on his hotel bed, he chose a new song for the next round, "Tears in Heaven," by Eric Clapton. It was a song that spoke to him deeply because it reminded him of his father. During rehearsals, he closed his eyes and imagined his father sitting in the front row. On performance day, Miguel walked out onto the Hollywood stage with calm determination. The lights dimmed, and he began to play. His soft voice carried sadness and hope all at once. The judges listened silently, their eyes glistening. By the final verse, a hush filled the hall, and when he finished, the audience stood, clapping slowly, emotionally. Simon looked visibly moved and said, "You sing with the kind of heart money can't buy." Miguel's mother in the crowd pressed her hands to her chest, tears streaming down. That night, clips of his song flooded the internet again. People wrote that his voice could heal souls. Miguel didn't know about fame, but he knew that for the first time, he had made people truly feel something. The next round came faster than expected, and Miguel began to doubt himself again. The semi-finalists were polished and glamorous, their performances filled with lights and effects. Miguel only had his guitar and voice. The night before his performance, he told his mom he wanted to go home. "They're all better than me," he said softly. She took his hands and whispered, "You're not here to be better, you're here to be you." Those words echoed in his heart. The next day, when he stepped onto the semifinal stage, he chose "Imagine" by John Lennon. As he sang, the words seemed to come from somewhere deep inside, a dream of peace, hope, and simplicity. His voice cracked at moments, but it made the performance even more real. When he finished, the silence in the room lasted a full 5 seconds before the crowd rose to their feet. Simon leaned toward the microphone and said quietly, "That performance could heal hearts." Miguel smiled through tears, whispering, "Thank you." That night, social media exploded again, calling him the boy who sings with his soul. He wasn't just a contestant anymore. He was a symbol of hope. As the semi-finals ended, Miguel felt both proud and scared. He had come so far, but now the pressure was heavier than ever. Everywhere he went, people recognized him, fans asking for photos, producers scheduling interviews, and journalists calling him the miracle boy from Cebu. Deep down, though, Miguel was still just a kid who missed his home, his old street corner, and his quiet life with his mom. Each night before sleeping, he prayed in the hotel room, thanking God for the chance he'd been given and asking for strength to finish strong. The finale was only a week away, and his competitors were rehearsing day and night. Some had entire stage crews, backup singers, and professional coaches. Miguel had only his guitar, his mom, and his faith. When he sat down with the show's musical director to plan his performance, they suggested he try something bigger. Miguel shook his head and said softly, "I just want to sing from my heart. That's enough." But in the days that followed, doubts began creeping in. Online comments criticized him for being too simple or predictable. "He just sings slow songs," one said. "He won't last in the final," another wrote. Miguel read them late one night and closed his phone, feeling crushed. He told his mom he wasn't sure he belonged there anymore. She sat beside him on the bed, brushing his hair gently. Anak, she said in Filipino, the world may judge, but God gave you this voice for a reason. Don't let fear take it away. Miguel nodded, holding back tears. The next morning, when he stepped into the rehearsal studio, something changed. He began to sing louder, more confidently, as if he had rediscovered his purpose. The staff stopped what they were doing to listen. Even the sound engineer said quietly, he's ready. The night of the grand finale arrived, and the air buzzed with excitement. The stage glowed in gold and blue lights, cameras swirling to capture every face. Miguel stood backstage, holding his guitar close, whispering a prayer. His mom held his shoulders and smiled through tears. Whatever happens out there, she said, you've already won. When his name was called, Miguel stepped into the spotlight to thunderous applause. The lights dimmed, and the first notes of Hotel California rang out once more, the song that had started everything. But this time, he sang it differently, slower, deeper, as if telling the story of his entire journey. Then, halfway through, the music shifted into What a Wonderful World. The audience gasped at the transition. His clear, angelic voice filled the hall with warmth, and by the final note, even the judges were standing. The moment the applause ended, Simon Cowell leaned forward with glassy eyes and said, Miguel, you came here with a guitar and a dream, and tonight you reminded the world what real music is. The audience roared. Tears streamed down Miguel's cheeks as confetti fell once more, not from a buzzer this time, but from celebration. When the results were finally announced, Miguel didn't win first place. The title went to a dance group. For a brief moment, silence filled him, but then the entire crowd began chanting his name again. He smiled, realizing something powerful. He had already won the hearts of millions. After the show, music labels and talk shows began calling. Simon personally met Miguel backstage, shaking his hand and saying, you don't need to win to be unforgettable. His mom hugged him, whispering, we did it, Anak. We really did. The next morning, their story made global headlines. Street boy from Cebu steals America's heart. Back in the Philippines, people filled the streets, waving flags and watching his finale on big screens. Schools played his performance during assemblies, and kids carried toy guitars pretending to be Miguel. Weeks later, Miguel returned home. When his plane landed in Cebu, a massive crowd awaited him at the airport, chanting his name. Reporters followed him as he walked out with his guitar slung over his shoulder, tears glistening in his eyes. I'm just happy to be home, he said softly. That night, instead of a grand stage, Miguel sang once again on the same street corner where it all began. The lights were dim, but his voice was just as bright. He sang, What a Wonderful World, smiling as his mom sold flowers nearby. The world had seen his talent, but the streets of Cebu had given him his soul. Miguel wasn't just a contestant anymore, he was a dream come true, proof that even the smallest voice can echo across the world.